really start the forum, I did want to read to you an announcement that is out front. I'm not sure whether all of you have seen it or not, but the West Virginia Public Service Commission will conduct a public hearing on the Mountaineer Gas Pipeline on this coming Wednesday, October the 24th at 6:30 p.m. in the Storeroom Ballroom at Shepherd University. A public hearing is a convening of the government officials to hear from any and all members of the public on a specified topic matter. This is your opportunity to express your opinion directly to the decision makers on this important matter. As just a general notice to everybody. So, let's start the forum. Greetings. Thank you all for coming. The League of Women Voters of Jefferson County is pleased to welcome you here this evening. First, before we really start, let's extend a very special welcome to all of our candidates that are here today and those running for office. I see some, I think, candidates in the audience, and I will ask you to stand and introduce yourself with name and title only, such as I'm doing. My name is Chris Kinsella. I'm with the League of Women Voters. I work with voter education, or voter services, specifically voter education. Danny Lutz is one person I do recognize. If you want to stand and take a bow, Danny. He's running for 2nd District Congressional. Any other candidates or, okay, any other candidates or incumbents in the audience that would like to stand and introduce themselves? Okay. I'd also like to pause and thank all those members in the military service, past, present, and future, and thank them for what they have done, as well as all of our civil servants who help to keep us safe and healthy and free. In 2020, the League of Women Voters, which is not limited to women only, it includes men as well, the League will be celebrating its centennial birthday, 100 years. It's going to be a very exciting year. 2020 not only is a big election year, but it's our birthday. Over the years, the League has been proud to host very public events designed to promote nonpartisan civic education. This evening, we are hosting a forum for the candidates for the Jefferson County Commission. They will be introduced by our moderator, a local attorney, Ms. Kim Crockett. Ms. Crockett is a longtime member of our community and has certainly provided great service to us. She's known to many of you personally and to some of you on a other professional level. But certainly she is known for her public service. She's focused on the health and welfare of area families and area children. And thank you, Ms. Crockett, for all that you have done for our community. Thank you. Before I turn the meeting over to her, or the forum over to her, I'd like to skim over a few guidelines. Each candidate will present a 2-minute self-introduction. This will be followed by question and answer period. We do have some questions that were pre-generated and others we'll take from the audience. The question and answer period will be followed by a 1-minute wrap-up provided by the candidates. We have a timekeeper, Ms. Sturm, and she has us there to help us keep to these guidelines. She has a pattern. She will, 30 seconds or so before the time frame is over, she'll show you a blue side, and then the red side is a got a time. As I said, we do have predetermined questions. We're also eager to have questions from the audience. We have people available with note cards for you to jot down your questions. They will bring them up to a moderator, and she will try her best to include as many as possible. Finally, needs to be said, I'm so sorry, but let's all be civil this evening. We have a lot of turmoil in our political situation right now, the environment. So let's extend full courtesy to which we are all due. No applause, please, and no outspoken comments during any of the spoken moments. And Ms. Crockett, if you would be good enough to start us off.
All right. Welcome to the candidates. I'm going to just start on the left to allow you all an opportunity to introduce yourselves, and I'll begin with Mr. Lorenzetti. And thank you for standing, Mr. Lorenzetti. If there was a request from the audience already that if the candidates are comfortable, if they can stand when they give their remarks so that the people in the back would be able to see you. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kim, and I thank the League of Women Voters. Kim, you shouldn't say I'm on the left. I mean, that's here to begin with.
You're on my left today.
For those who don't know me, I'm Ralph Lorenzetti. About 35 years ago, my wife, Rose Canarella, and myself, and our two sons, Adam and Jason. I have a new grandson. Moved here, settled in the Onoszko Estates near Harper's Ferry. My wife was the primary person picking this area because she wanted to start a medical practice. And she and her classmate, Casey, now started the Harper's Ferry Medical Clinic. I started very slowly with law practice, some surveying and a little engineering here in downtown Charlestown. In my first month here, we had a 30-inch snow. So it was very slow getting started here. About 2 years after I was here, Mike Thompson asked that I help out the prosecutor's office 1 day a week. And eventually I became 2 days, and 3 days, and 4 days, and I was full-time. And when Mike retired, I ran for and was elected prosecutor of the county and served 8 years. I retired about 1.5 years ago. I did try to run for judge, did very well in Jefferson County, did very poorly in Berkeley County. Sat home for about 1.5 years, and this position came due for election, and I thought I still had a little bit of youth left in me. It's a 2-year term, and I was going to give it a try, and I'm going to thank you for listening to me tonight. I hope I don't bore you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenzetti. Mr. Tabb.
And I'll take the opportunity also so that the rest of you can see me in the back. You look very different tonight. A lot of you already see me and hear me speak, and you only see me from the back. That's a different perspective. I've been in the county all my life. I've been given the opportunity to be a good steward of this county and land. My parents raised me to give respect and always make sure that you give more than you receive. There's a lot of controversy of how I've done things, but I've done it my way. The government has tried and tried to silence me, and that won't happen. Regardless of what this election does, I never thought that I needed to be in this position. But we have troubled times. And as you can see, this room is over capacity. That speaks for itself. I applaud all of you. This is a God-given and a United States constitutional right for you to be here, to be heard, and to be listened to, and your concerns addressed. And my opponents, I applaud them as well, because you can't have these kinds of forums if you're the only person here. A lot of questions have been asked, and a lot of questions will be answered, but you truly will make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabb. Mr. Onoszko.
Good evening, I'm Peter Onoszko. I'm currently the Jefferson County Commissioner representing the Harpers Ferry Magisterial District. I've been on the commission for almost 2.5 years now. During 2017, I served as president of the commission. During this period, I have striven to meet the needs of the people of the county. I have literature out in the hall that explains some of the stuff that I've done, pushing for consolidation of public utilities where the existing public utility was charging exorbitant rates on the ratepayers. Standing against annexation of vast portions of the county by the city because they were doing it the wrong way. I recently introduced the ordinance prohibiting forced hookups if you have a functioning well and septic system. We moved here 13 years ago. I got involved in politics in January of 2009, and I'm looking for your vote, obviously.
Thank you. Ms. Tabb?
Good evening, and it's so good to see so many of you here. I applaud your interest. I arrived in Jefferson County in 1974 as a summer intern on the Tabb dairy farm. I returned to Virginia Tech to complete my degree in dairy science and married Cam Tabb in 1975. We've been blessed with 4 wonderful children and 9 grandchildren that amaze me every day. In the early 1990s, the 5 acres of our farmland adjacent to the Jefferson County landfill was barren. It was evident that the landfill was leaking. After more than 2 years of meeting with local and state officials, letter writings, FOIA requests, the landfill was eventually closed and capped. And during those times, we had threatening phone calls and were worried about the safety of our children. So this experience has given me empathy and insight into the anti-Rockwool movement. Next year, I will have 4 grandchildren attending T.A. Lowry Elementary School. So this is very personal for me too. And I am not just an anti-Rockwool candidate. I support relocating the United Daughters of the Confederacy plaque. I support the ambulance fee to pay for emergency services and reduce response time, and prudent budgeting of your tax dollars. I have led by example when I turned down a salary increase, saving you, the taxpayer, almost $18,000 over the past 4 years. I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, but I do listen. I may not always agree with you, but I strive, and some days it's really hard, to keep an open mind on all issues and engage in respectful debate. Thank you.
Mr. Barrat?
Thank you very much, Ms. Crockett and League of Women Voters. My name is Robert Barrat. I'm a 62-year-old attorney. I work in Martinsburg. I live in Shenandoah Junction, right next to the proposed Rockwool plant. In 1994, I started practicing law. I got out of law school, started practicing law in Berkeley County and Jefferson County. I've done probably every kind of case. I've done bankruptcies, divorces, criminal cases, civil cases, collections. I went to Charleston once to help someone try to hang on to their nursing license. That was a hearing in front of the Nursing Board of Appeals. I bring a lot of legal experience to Jefferson County. I would like to use that experience to try to help Jefferson County Commission. My #1 priority is to try to stop the Rockwool plant from going forward. Yesterday, Ralph Lorenzetti and I sat down and wrote a letter to the governor to ask to have the permit pulled and for construction to stop. We also sent a copy of the letter to the mayor of Branson. I have a couple extra copies of it. I want to say it. I have the letter here. Here, it's on Facebook also. If you just drive around Jefferson County, we have the C&O Canal, we have the Appalachian Trail, we have Summit Point Speedway, Charlestown Races and Slots, we have the whole horse racing industry, we have the bike path, we have Shenandoah Shepherd University, we have American Public Online University. It's a beautiful county. We do not need a heavy industry in the center of that county putting out 300 tons of particulate matter a year and other volatile organic chemicals on the county. Okay, thank you. So that is my position. I'm also interested in trying to bring broadband internet into Jefferson County and also And I'm very interested in consolidation of the utilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Okay, we're gonna jump right in. As I ask the questions, I'm gonna try to move around to give candidates an equal chance to answer the questions first. And we'll start with this question. And this was a question submitted by the Martinsburg Journal. Do you feel the process to bring Rockwool to Jefferson County was transparent and or fair? Please explain your answer. Ms. Tabb, we'll start with you. Ladies first.
Oh, well, it certainly has been a challenge understanding all the moving parts with Rockwool, and I do not feel, to answer the question directly, that the process has been transparent. We're still digging for more details. I really feel the way the infrastructure was done and funded from the state, we've got something moving or pushing us from the state. And I can't name names because I don't know for sure who it is. I have some ideas. You know, I was very disappointed that the Development Authority never took a position on the PSD dissolution, because it was my understanding the business or the industrial park needed more sewer capacity. But now I realize that the money that was going to go to that sewer project has gone to the Rockwool sewer and water lines. That bothers me tremendously, and I don't know how to undo that. I was told when I visited Rockwool, and when it was presented to us here, that the air emissions were no different than the ambient air. We all know that's not true. We all know that in the process of things being presented to us, we did not have the air quality permit prior to agreeing to the pilot, which was the role of the commission. And I feel that is a totally backwards way to do any of this, to do any industry. I've recently looked at our own zoning regs, and we've got some problems there that we need to fix as far as in locating in industrial sites in the county. So yeah, we've all been thrown up in the air and tossed and tumbled, and still trying to sort out all the facts.
Thank you, Ms. Tabb. Mr. Onoszko, again, do you believe that the process was transparent and fair? Explain.
The process was transparent, it was fair. The problem is that when notice for public comment and hearings and whatever was given, nobody bothered to show up. When the Rockwool announcement was made, organizations such as the Panhandle Protectors, the Sierra Club in West Virginia were notified by the DEP, and nothing happened. As a matter of fact, when the now infamous day before Thanksgiving notice was put in the newspaper outlining emissions, there was complete silence. One individual, to the best of my knowledge, did try and raise the issue, and nothing happened. Then, when the groundbreaking took place in June of this year, within about 2 weeks, all sorts of pandemonium occurred. Now, if you invite somebody to a hearing and the person doesn't come, I mean, the only comments that were received by the DEP were from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I don't believe that Maryland responded. But I mean, everybody was notified, all the relevant agencies and what have you. The emissions, and I'm going to be right up front, and the emissions meet the DEP standards. As a matter of fact, they're in compliance with the EPA standards. The EPA standards were formulated in conjunction with the Sierra Club, and the Sierra Club approved the standards when they came out. These are the 2015 standards that are still in effect and that affect the mineral wool production in this country. And I don't know what more can be said about that. Thank you.
Mr. Tabb?
you. As far as the question, was it transparent? It was so transparent, you couldn't even see it. Now, after that, I understand your concerns. I have a letter here to the EPA asking it to be stopped. What was transparent when Rockwell asked for a change on its coal source? Peat coal was the emissions for it. Hard coal was what was asked for one day prior to the release in the paper. Where is that release in the paper? There is none. So where do we go from here? Well, EPA, DEP, Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, met them directly. Who else has been digging up all this information? I did a FOIA to the governor's office and got over 2,000 pages of fluff. But within that document, there was 4 important pieces of paper that came from the EPA. And they asked West Virginia DEP and DAQ, why would you need an oxygen production plant at this facility when you can't use oxygen? Their answer was, trucked in oxygen is the same as being made there. It is not. This is a travesty. No transparency, only that there wasn't any sight at all. I will stand up and fight this with every ounce that I have. This is important to me. Regardless of the election, I will still fight.
Go ahead, Mr. Lorenzetti.
Thank you. Somebody can say they met the standard of the law, the current standard. I would hope if I was county commissioner and I really saw what was coming in to be reviewed, and I saw that they were going to put 2 200-foot stacks up, that I would be the one to object, ask for the hearing, demand that something be done. You know, I've got a personal responsibility to do that, and if I'm a county commissioner, I should do that. As far as notices go, the commission is asking, or had asked, that the notices for all legal things be transferred to the Journal. Well, let's have both newspapers do notices. Let's have something on media. My kids don't look at newspapers. They look at the Twitter and the Facebook. We need to have some sort of notice that way. We're not getting it. You know, I did not see it, and I'm a pretty intelligent person that reads a lot of newspapers, and until I saw the construction going on and the 200-foot stacks, I didn't even notice what was happening. I think the state is just trying to get industry here and not paying attention to the effects it has on the local people. Thank you.
Mr. Barrat?
Thank you. It's difficult for me to tell how transparent it was. I'm troubled by the non-disclosure agreement. I think had Rockwell put in the first announcement that they were going to bring 200-foot stacks and put 300 tons of pollutant in the air every year, I think that would have been a different response and more awareness at that time. So I think where we are now is we have to do the best we can to try to reverse it. We can't go back and change the past. We got to go with where we are right now. You know that Amazon just announced they're going to come into Crystal City, and I think I'm correct on that. They're going to need office space up here too. There's a lot of green industry that are looking for a place to go. Whatever happened to the Northport Station? That was the plan before Rockwell came. Northport Station probably would have provided more jobs. It would have been a greener, happier, more friendly neighbor than Rockwell. We, like I said earlier, we have the horse race industry, we have agriculture, we have all these beautiful facilities here in Jefferson County. We do not need a heavy industry right in the middle of the county, so close to North Jefferson Elementary School. That is an underprivileged elementary school to start with. It's close to all those other elementary schools and Jefferson High School. We need to do whatever we can now to try to stop it. Thank you.
And follow up to your responses, do you think the Open Meetings Act needs to be updated and expanded so that the notice period maybe is extended, or that notice should be required in more forms than just the journal? Ms. Tabb?
Yes, one thing we did this a couple years ago, I'm very interested in having not only our staff, but all our boards and commissions trained in the Open Meetings Act and the Ethics Act. I think also in addition, and we are looking for ways, but you know, the only legal requirement for a meeting is to post it on the courthouse door. We do announce it in many different formats from the county commission level, but I think our boards and commissions don't have to follow that, and I wish they would do more on social media and so forth. But I do think that the state code needs to be changed so that that's recognized as a legal way to inform our citizens about meetings, and then everybody will know where to look in an electronic format rather than just the newspaper. So, and open meetings are very significant. You all know my son's on the Development Authority. Most of you know that. There's been some issues there that involve him. So I am limited on what I can say, but things need to change.
Mr. Lorenzetti, you kind of alluded to this answers to this in your last response. Do you want to add to that at all?
Just to say that we have a younger generation and they don't need to read newspapers. We do need to find another way to get them involved. And as far as open meetings, yes. I think more than just a notice on the door needs to be done. And once the meeting is there, people should be allowed to participate as much as they can. Thank you.
Mr. Onoszko?
First of all, you have to realize that the deal between Rockwool, the zoning, the location, and all that was done between Rockwool and the city of Ranson. And in West Virginia, you have, I'll think of the term in a moment, that cities can get away with doing a lot more than counties can. Home rule is the term I'm thinking of. I must say that I'm astonished. I mean, I'm absolutely astonished that a lawyer and a former prosecutor would stand in front of you and say that meeting the law is not enough. What do? Make up laws and make up things as we go along? We follow the law as it's written. If the law needs to be changed, then some level of legislature, either state or federal, needs to be lobbied and the law needs to be changed. But if we don't go along and follow the law and say, well, it's not enough to follow the law, we have to do something else. What is the something else? Where is the standard that we go to? You know, and we're not in a situation where we just sit down and say, well, we're going to make this up for this, we're going to make this up for that. I don't know how much stuff is supposed to spew out of a exhaust stack. I do know that everything that comes out of that stack meets the requirements drawn up by the agencies that are constituted to evaluate that and approve that.
Thank you, Mr. Onoszko. Mr. Tabb, did I give you your response to that? Please.
We need a lot of change. A lot of people have made fun of me being called Mr. Flag by the county commission. They're the ones that called me that. I just adopted it. This county commission was running illegally without flags out in front of the building for 3 years. I asked them constantly to change it. They forced me to take them and challenge them in court. It went clear to the U.S. Supreme Court. It even came down to the point that the Judge Fry almost locked them all up until he got a phone call from Charleston not to. This is how serious this stuff is. The only reason why this facility has a flag outside is because I challenged it. Even when they agreed to put it up, they still didn't. So what's the law? What's the law if you don't follow it? I have to follow the law. You have to follow the law. If you don't pay your taxes, they'll sell your property in front of the courthouse. That's their law. Now, we need to stand up as a group, as the citizens, as the taxpayer, and make sure that the government is doing what we and our forefathers intended for them to do. This is our country. It's our land. It's our towns. And when you have one town that can take over and control the whole county and or state, that's seriously wrong. And I don't have all the answers, but I need your help to find that answer, because you are the voice.
And Mr. Tabb, while you're still standing, do you think that the act needs to be updated and expanded to provide notice in more forms than just the journal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that. Just for the simple fact that we do have other media that our laws and structure have not come up to speed on.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Mr. Barrat, I don't believe I got your response to that question yet.
Thank you. I think it's very clear the law has not kept up with technology. Today, I think the Charleston Gazette is having financial troubles, or they filed bankruptcy. If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm right on that. Newspapers are kind of a old technology. Everything today is Twitter DM, instant message, emails, texts. Has anybody here ever heard of the website called Auction Zip, where you type in your zip code and it gives you all the auctions within 5 miles or 10 miles or 15? They need an event zip where you can type in your zip code and you get all the events and all the notices within a certain radius of where you type it in. I think that they do need to have electronic notices of all the meetings, email notices on the website. You know, I got a lot of information about Rockwool off the Jefferson County Commission website. But at any rate, we're still here today, and we still have Rockwool trying to construct that plant. I'm sorry Mr. Onoszko is upset. I just want to read one sentence from the pilot agreement the county commissioner signed. The sitting county commissioners signed that they found that Rockwool would promote the present and prospective prosperity, health, happiness, safety, and general welfare of the people of Jefferson County. I don't think that Rockwool does that. I think we need to do whatever we can to try to get rid of Rockwool now. Where we are today, we need to stop Rockwool. Thank you.
Mr. Onoszko, you mentioned home rule. The next question relates to home rule, so I'll direct that to you first, okay? 4 municipalities in Jefferson County have home rule: Shepherdstown, Charlestown, Ranson, and Harpers Ferry. Home rule is set to expire in the spring of 2019, but may be extended. What impact has home rule had on Jefferson County, and what do you feel has been the advantages or disadvantages of the rule?
There's an interesting tension, if you will, between municipalities and the counties. Being, not to get overly technical, but we're a Dillon state, and in simple terms, that means that if the county wants to do something, if it's not specifically delineated in state code, the county has to ask Mother May I. With home rule, the municipalities are free to do all sorts of things without going to the state and saying, gee, can we do this, that, or the other. A good example of this was several years ago, the brunch bill that came up because the municipalities were allowed to serve spirituous beverages on Sundays. And this was taking business away from businesses in the county, particularly the Bavarian Inn, but others as well. So we had to go through a process of getting enough signatures to hold a referendum to allow the businesses in the counties to compete with businesses in the municipalities, and that's just one example. We're faced with Rockwool right now. The zoning, the control of zoning within the municipality of Ranson is done by the city of Ranson, not by the County Planning Commission. And the ordinances in effect that the County Planning Commission adopted only include those unincorporated areas within the county. This is a disadvantage because you have one municipality that makes a decision that affects virtually everybody else in the county, and the county commission is powerless to do anything about it. Thank you.
Mr. Lorenzetti?
I don't dispute that the towns currently have an advantage with the home rule. It'd be nice if the county government had a similar rule. And that's one of the things you ask your legislatures to do, and I think we need to do that. One of the concerns I have, and Mr. Onoszko is not wrong, the cities have their own planning, county has planning. We have a very nice map up in the planning commission that's supposed to state how the county's to be developed. The city, I believe, has representatives on that, but it's not binding on the cities. We need to have a system where we come up with a county plan. It is really a county plan. It's not, yeah, the county, except for 40% or 30% of the county that's off on their own doing their own thing. So in that sense, I do not dispute with Mr. Onoszko that. I supported him and the other county commissioners when they objected to the annexation. But annexation is there. It's going to come piecemeal, but it's still going to come. We need to fix the situation before that happens. Thank you.
Mr. Barrat?
I've seen home rule be very effective in Berkeley County and Martinsburg. They've used home rule to close down drug houses real fast where they couldn't before. So it does have some use. The problem in Jefferson County, the Rockwool property was annexed, and it's in the middle of Jefferson County, but it's controlled by a different set of zoning regulations, and they just let it come in and start the Rockwool plant there. I still would like to see the Northport station come in there. That was a much nicer plan for Jefferson County. I agree with Mr. Lorenzetti. It kind of makes a patchwork county if you have 2 or 3 different municipalities within the county with all different zoning regs. And you know, the other thing, think about all the different people it takes to run all those different planning commissions when you could just have one planning commission. You got 3 or 4 planning commissions. You see, that's kind of a duplication of effort. The other thing, it's a duplication of effort if you want to look at the consolidation of the utilities in this county, to have Jefferson Utilities, Charlestown Utilities, the Public Service Commission, all 3 of them have 3 different sets of meter readers running all around, reading their different meters. So there we are. Thank you.
Mr. Tabb?
Home rule. How can home rule take over what the county is? Does that mean it's Ranson County or Jefferson County? On the brunch bill, there was also one with Ranson. They wanted to start selling alcohol earlier. Both of them were presented, went through a board review in Charleston with the home rule board. The brunch bill, after we had hearings and everything else and it was presented, then the board approved it, and then we had the other issues, and then it was allowed. So here you have a Ransom produce, or at least change the whole structure to a SID, that is a special industrial district, which you can do anything, and it's also classified to be done on experimental reasons or purposes. And if you have home rule, and home rule is supposed to take precedent, then it should have been brought before the Home Rule Board, and it wasn't. I still want to challenge that, because it wasn't done right. Branson does not have complete control. If they did, then it would be Branson County, not Jefferson County. You really need to look at this seriously. Nobody has really taken an eye at this SID, which is an experimental structured facility. You can do anything you want. And mainly it's set up for military and for airports. But yet now they're gonna let it be this. And the stack height, Jefferson County has a 75-foot limit. Now how did that happen? Are they not still in Jefferson County? It's just a thought.
Ms. Tabb?
Would you repeat the question? I think it's about home rule.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
4 municipalities in Jefferson County have home rule: Shepherdstown, Charlestown, Ranson, and Harpers Ferry. Home rule is set to expire in spring of 2019, but may be extended. What impact has home rule had on Jefferson County, and what do you feel has been the advantage or disadvantage of the rule?
Okay. I just didn't want to lose the focus of the question, because it does take us in all different directions. Home rule, I think, has worked for the cities. You know that when you go to a McDonald's in Charlestown and you get that extra penny in sales tax. That's why the cities want home rule. That's one reason. And so, you know, the brunch bill is another example of how it gave them flexibility to do something. And also, as Mr. Barrat pointed out, the drug houses in Martinsburg, which I think is a wonderful, it looks from all the reports I've seen in the paper that it's working amazingly well. I sure wish we had that flexibility at the county level. We don't have that, and it does make it tough to be creative and to come up with unique solutions for your unique problems. So, and another concern I want to add to this discussion, it's not really to home rule, but to the annexation that occurred during my first term as commissioner. The Ranson annexed that Jefferson Orchard property. The whole commission voted against it. It was taken to the Supreme Court, and we were defeated. And that annexation, Pipeston annexation, went forward. That law has since been changed, but I am still worried about future annexations by Ranson on the Jefferson Orchard site, because now there is a common border of an island out, and I just see where it would be difficult to stop an annexation when you have that border, common border. It wouldn't be a pipe stem anymore. So that is something we have to be aware of and watch closely.
Thank you. Did I get everyone on that? The next question is, what is your position on the Confederate plaque at the courthouse? And I'll start with you, Mr. Tabb.
This is another issue that I've addressed before. I didn't put it there. And I don't think there's a person left here that's still alive from that era. It was a sad time in our history. But history repeats itself. So, if you put a plaque up, I don't think that 5 people sitting up here in this position have the right to make the decision on what everyone else is going to see for the rest of their life. It's simple. Let you decide. Not anybody that's sitting here. You know, I wasn't there, and neither were any of you. The roads weren't here. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have the amenities that we have right now. Times were tough. It was lucky for you to have enough food and clothing on your back to last until the next spring. Has anyone felt that? I don't think so. You've had the luxury of what everybody else sacrificed. So to have a war within the structure of one having to stay alive, and then have all this force and come together as a group of people, and then after it was all said and done, and we buried the dead, we still had to face it. So the plaque needs to be decided by the people, not 5 individuals.
Mr. Barrat?
Let me just say super briefly, back on the home rule, I think if you combine home rule with Ranson's annexation, that's how you end up with a stack right next to North Jefferson Elementary School. It's a bad deal. The plaque has got to come down. It is a tribute to Confederacy that stands for white supremacy, slavery, people owning other people. The plaque has got to come down. There was a beautiful editorial last week in the Spirit about another plaque in Harper's Ferry. That should come down too. It's a monument. It should also come down. It's an insult to everybody.
Okay. Mr. Lorenzetti?
I agree with Mrs. Barrett that the plaque should come down. I don't know if it's an affront, but I believe to the African American community it is. It's right by the door. It should come down. But I also believe it is something about dead ancestors that some people have concern about. So I think it should be done in a historical fashion, put it at a location where it'll have the respect it could. And also, there should be in that location some information about the African Americans who were held in Harper's Ferry, that many died of illness there. And that's not acknowledged at all, as far as I can tell, anywhere around the courthouse. And other things should be too. I think the whole history of Jefferson County should be someplace in a dignified location. I know a lot of us don't like Custer, but Custer was a person who ran around and killed a lot of Jefferson County people. And Mosby fought him. And I think all that should be in a historical location, not on the front of the courthouse. That's for, well, the front of the courthouse should be the front of the courthouse. I think it needs to be fixed up. The bricks, if you notice, are crumbling. There needs to be work on our courthouse to make it a lasting monument to our county.
Mr. Onoszko?
Out of sight, out of mind, eh? Actually, I agree with Mr. Tabb. I think that if people who want to move the plaque someplace else got enough signatures to make it a ballot initiative, then at the next election cycle, the citizenry can vote on it and let the vox populi, the voice of the people, be heard. Mr. Lorenzetti did make a comment saying that there are a lot of people who have relatives. There are people, by the way, the plaque was placed in 1983, and there are people alive still who were alive in 1983. There are people who hold memory of loved ones on both sides, those who were held as slaves, those who were Confederate veterans, those who were Union veterans. It just so happens that the law of the land is that Confederate soldiers are classified as veterans, as United States veterans, veterans of United States wars. This is the law of the land. But I do think that if there is enough interest in moving the plaque, and it's not the 5 commissioners, people should get the issue on the ballot, and it should be put as a referendum to all the voters in the county.
Thank you. Ms. Tabb?
Well, this was another quite divisive issue. And initially, I voted not to remove the plaque, but I also voted to form a committee to study the issue. The following commission meeting, I place the formation of a plaque memorial committee on the agenda. Commissioner Onoszko moved to rescind his previous motion to form the committee, and the committee concept was killed at that time. The following meeting, the United Daughters of the Confederacy Representative Polly Wharton agreed that the plaque could be moved. My own research and contacts with concerned citizens led me to a greater sensitivity of how some folks view and react to the plaque. I understand that the Confederates are all war veterans, but I want something that can honor all our veterans. I have never wanted the plaque eliminated, rather moved to a more suitable location. And I would like to see other plaques erected. I thought George Street would be a good place, but I am open to any other ideas, and I think a citizens committee could do that. You know, we don't have any plaques to honor our Union soldiers, World War I, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and all the other wars that we have veterans, and this state has given blood as our veterans have served. We're, I think, the highest serving state as far as veterans compared to our population, and we need to recognize them. And this is something in January I will put back on the agenda.
Thank you. The next question, do you support the path by the current county commission to dissolve the Jefferson County Public Service District and have it acquired by Charlestown? Let's see, who has not started first? Mr. Barrett, you have it?
Thank you. I own a house in Martinsburg, and I'm sorry, a lot of my references are Berkeley County. I own a house in Martinsburg. It's just a house, but I use it for my office. And it's right in the middle of downtown Martinsburg. And my water bill is $75, but it's $75, that covers 2 months. So it's only $37, somewhere in there. I've talked to people in big subdivisions out here, their water and sewer is $150 a month. They've got to get that down. That's just too high. It's too high, and it needs to come down, and they need to consolidate all those utilities into one payer. They need to get a large number of a large number of users and get the numbers down. It's what I was talking about before. You have all those, you have Jefferson Utilities, you have Charlestown, you have Ranson, you have PSD, you have 4 different sets of guys driving around in pickup trucks reading meters. We need to economize and get the rates down. It's like paying a mortgage almost on some of that on your water and sewer bill. It's very high. It needs to come down, and I'm for consolidation. I'm for reduction in the overhead. I like to get the rates down. I'd also like to bring broadband into Jefferson County. We need to have faster internet. You can get on the internet and you can do a speed test, and my speed test in my house with the local provider, it starts with an F. It's 1.7 megabytes. Now that is so slow, my laptop thinks it's off sometimes, but it's actually on. We need to get broadband in. That's how you improve the land value. That's how you improve your property value. One of the biggest reasons people take new jobs is if they can telecommute. You cannot telecommute if you only have 1.7 gigs. You need 30 gigs or 50 gigs. You need super fast internet. You need good internet control and at a low cost. So I'd like to try to work with somebody to try to bring a cooperative in here, get the internet speed up. I do think we do need to consolidate all the utilities in Jefferson County, get the rates down. Thank you.
Ms. Tabb?
The dissolution of the PSD has had me concerned for its short and long-term effects. I feel that in the swift move to merge with Charlestown, that the PSD failed to negotiate the best deal for its ratepayers. The current agreement involves no monetary value for the $16 million in PSD assets, which is a win for the city of Charlestown, but I feel a loss for the PSD customers. The PSD has minimal debt and Charlestown carries a heavy debt right now. So who benefits? 10 years of rate equalization. To me, that is far too long for the rates to be, hopefully to get the PSD rates to go down, but the Charlestown rates will probably go up. So who's benefiting there also? My biggest concern, there's only one PSD representative on the board, and that person has not been appointed yet. Charlestown Utility and the council is making decisions, important decisions on their sewer service, and there's no one there representing a PSD ratepayer that I know of. I do think there are some Charlestown councilmen, and perhaps there is one on the utility board that is a PSD ratepayer, but I do think there needs to be an appointment, an official appointment made. So I feel like the PSD ratepayers right now are disenfranchised. Further, Senate Bill 234 grants approval to the city without PSC oversight on the rates. This is a major concern for all ratepayers. I have always favored consolidation, but this acquisition is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I would much prefer to see the configuration of a regional sewer authority where there's no boundary lines. We're serving the county, and it represents all the ratepayers and sets the course for future actions and expansion in the county, not on a city-by-city basis. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Mr. Onoszko.
As Mr. Barrat pointed out, the atrociously high rates that were being forced on the ratepayers in the PSD, the Public Service District, not to be confused with the PSC, which is the state agency, were being used to fund various projects of which the ratepayers were not the beneficiaries, and it was being placed on the backs of ratepayers. The board, as constituted, had one person who actually had the ratepayers' interests at heart, and you had two other people on the board who, one was not hooked up to the system, and the other one, I believe, ran a business out of his home and was able to deduct his sewer rates, water rates from as a business expense. The thing that we were able to accomplish, and by the way, the PSD, as we speak right now, still exists, and what we were able to accomplish was to have a board controlling the PSD consisting of homeowner ratepayers, all of whom would have to live with the ramifications of any decisions that they took. Now, tomorrow morning, the PSC, or the Supreme Court, will hear oral arguments. The Public Service Commission has already approved the dissolution. The Supreme Court will hear arguments because a group of developers got together and have opposed the consolidation, and they brought an appeal after the Public Service Commission ruled in favor of the dissolution, and oral arguments will be heard in front of the West Virginia Supreme Court tomorrow morning. I think the Public Service District has a good chance of prevailing in that. Thank you.
Mr. Tabb.
I followed the PSD for a long time. It's pretty sad when the PSD was only taking care of the lines. Where did the flow go? What was in the pipes that the PSD were dealing with? It's called sewage. It's the bad end of the line. Who was treating the sewage? Tabb, Charlestown Utilities. So actually, the PSD was a third-party rate charger. That's why they were charging more. It's pretty simple. It's economics down. PSD was top-heavy on management. don't have any equipment, making everybody hire somebody else to come in and fix it. That system is in horrible shape. How do I know? Because I've been involved. Has any of y'all been to our sewer plants? I'm there very frequently, unfortunately. They're in sad shape. Why is the C-Tabb in debt? Is because they have brought us to the 21st century in treating sewage to protect us. But on the other hand, you have the DEP with 14 active Class 5 injection wells. They're right here. So, what are we going to do about that? They've been going on since '95 and nobody knew it. I made some phone calls, found out about it. Then they didn't want to give it to me. Then the county commission said, well, we want to know. Instantly I got it. What are we going to do about it? This came on your watch.
Do you support the dissolution of the Jefferson County Public Service District?
Absolutely.
Mr. Lorenzetti?
I had some concerns about the way that the board was dissolved, or what did the effect of having it dissolved. Saying that, I do believe consolidation is the way to go. I agree that there needs to be more representation of the county on the board. Currently, I believe we just get one person who has to be approved by the city of Charlestown, which means it's not really an independent person that's being put on that board. For those who understand economics, 2008, the bottom fell out of the housing market. There are subdivisions right along Flowing Springs that, once the economy's back up, are going to start to be developed, and the sewer will probably have to go there. We do not have a good way right now of funding that. Basically, the current users pay for the future. There are funding methods, and I believe the board and the county and the city need to get those funding to get the money before we build. So the ratepayers may have to pay on the loan, but the new service people or new homes will have to pay for it also. And I think that's the way to go. I think that's the only way you're going to get the rates down. If we don't do that, no matter who runs the board, the current users will have to pay for the expansion.
As the weather has changed, it brings me to the next question. Jefferson County Cold Weather Shelter has a capacity for 16 adults. There are over 50 adults currently expected to be seeking shelter this winter. Why do you think homelessness is on the rise, and what do you intend to do about it? Ms. Tabb.
Let's see, why is homelessness on the rise?
Yes.
Okay.
And do you have a solution for it?
I wish I did. I really do. I do think part of the problem is the opioid epidemic. We have it's hard to find reasonably priced housing. Things are more expensive here than in Berkeley County, so that's an issue, or of any in the surrounding states. So I think that's an issue. You know, the opioid epidemic has a ripple effect through families and children. I also know, besides homelessness, we have children that go to school, and by the end of the day, they're parentless. They have no legal guardian, and the school has to take care of that. So we've got a lot of social issues. It means the parent has overdosed and died during the school day, and the schools have to deal with those children and find a way to have them taken care of in a very short time period. We are very stressed in that area, and I do not have the answers I really wish I did, and if anybody has some answers, please let me know. I know community ministry does tremendous work, but they can't do it alone, and a lot of the churches also help. But we've all got to find a way to do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lorenzetti?
It is a problem. I don't have a solution for the whole thing. Many of the churches, my church also, St. James, takes in people, primarily women and children. We have shelters for most women and children. The problem there are single males. We had a problem at right out front here. The Episcopal Church tried to take them in the evening, and I think the Presbyterians tried to help. But asking one church at one location did not work. Because yes, in the evening they would stay there, but there was a problem of congregation in front of the library. They had nothing to do. They need help, they need social work. I wish I had the solution, but I think it's going to have to be a county-wide solution. I think all the churches are going to have to be involved. All the social groups will have to be involved, the Kiwanis, the Rotans, and those groups. It's going to be a problem, and it will peak in about a month and a half.
Mr. Onoszko?
I don't think anybody here has the solution, but I think the problem is tied very much with the opioid crisis that we have right now. And if you're stoned, to use a expression back in the days of my youth, 90% of the time, there's no way you could possibly be productive. You don't have a self-esteem that makes you get out and do something, and you're sort of in a free fall until you reach what psychologists call a registration point. And frankly, I don't know how to deal with that. But I do know that homelessness, joblessness, and that kind of thing are related very strongly to the opioid crisis and other forms of addiction, alcohol and what have you, along with crime and whatever. There's one part of your question that I reject the premise of. I personally don't know that the homeless crisis is accelerating in and of itself. I think that it's a function of other aspects which I mentioned, principally addiction. And addiction brings with it a lack of responsibility, self-esteem, and whatever.
Mr. Barrat?
Very briefly, back on the plaque. You know what they did in Charlotte?
I'm going to ask you to answer
Charlottesville.
questions in
Okay.
the time period.
Okay, I'll stay within my time period. In Charlottesville, they just went out and pulled those statues down. They don't need a study. They just needed a vote. They had some beautiful speakers. Last county commission meeting, I was going to challenge the county commission to take a vote right then. There were some beautiful speakers came in with lots of reasons why to take down the plaque. They should have had a vote right then and taken it down. It's got to go. It's an insult, and it stands for white supremacy. On the homeless issue, the houses in Jefferson County, if you look at the deed transfers, we're talking $400 grand for some of these houses in the subdivisions now. You know, they're unaffordable. A lot of the working people that come in to work in Jefferson County now live in Berkeley and Morgan County. At the Procter & Gamble plant in Martinsburg, they're busing people in to work from Romney and Cumberland to work in Berkeley County. They're having a hard time getting people to fill jobs. It's not the jobs, it's the people just, once they get in this homeless thing, once they start living outside, they like to live outside, and it's very hard to bring them back inside. If you ever go to California, go to San Francisco and see all the homeless people out there. There's not much of a homeless problem here in Jefferson County, comparatively speaking to bigger cities. It is still a problem. Housing has got to be the answer. You know, there's an agency called CCAP. It's not CCAP, it's the Habitat for Humanity. They're the only agency I see in Jefferson County trying to place these people in homes. They get a house, they sell them the house for just the construction cost, a 0% interest loan on the house. That's a good start. Thank you.
Mr. Tabb?
Does anybody remember the county farm? Do you know what it was? It was for our homeless people. And guess what? They grew the food they ate. They learned to take care of themselves. We still have that county farm. How do I know? Because I helped run it. This is not rocket science. These are people that are having a hard time. Why haven't we helped them for years? It's just not a problem that just reared its ugly head. Are we supposed to put this burden only on our churches? I say no. This county has ignored our people and our responsibilities. How dare we forget our people in time of need? History repeats itself. This comes around about every 30 or 40 years. Throw them away, get everything cleaned up, get better jobs, and then forget them. How sad. I help take care of people every day. So, is it a county problem or is it our problem? I say it's our problem. So, take this very seriously. Help your neighbor. Look after them. Do what you can. I give thousands of pounds of food away every year out of my garden because I can't eat it all. There is a solution, but only you should make the decision, not 5 people up here. Thank you.
We're going to shift focus to the equine industry. Do you believe that the West Virginia legislature's actions in 2014 with the passage of the haircut bill is an expropriation of private business funds from this county and the equine industry in direct opposition with the intent of 2 referendums passed by the voters of Jefferson County? Mr. Onoszko, if you would take that one first.
Yeah, I'll be glad to take that one. We have a racetrack here, a racetrack at Mountaineer. That's it for equine racetracks. The rest of the state, frankly, could care less about horse racing, about the horse industry. And there are a lot of times when people in Charleston forget that we even exist here in the Panhandle. One of the things that the Republican Party did at their platform meeting the summer before last was to make sure that the GOP supported the racing industry in the state of West Virginia. Unfortunately, the way it was written was suicidal for Republicans in Jefferson County, because the racing got confused with dog racing, and they're 2 different things. And so a one-size-fits-all provision on the party platform was adopted against opposition, and we told our candidates here, go ahead and say that you support the Republican platform, except the provision dealing with horse racing, well, dealing with racing in general. And I believe that our candidates held true to that, and there's a certain amount of work to be done in the legislature to straighten that out. Now, horses don't only come from Jefferson County, they come from other places in West Virginia where they get an advantage in terms of racing at the track that out-of-state bred horses don't get. The legislature needs to do more work on that.
Thank you. Mr. Tabb.
Well, if this rock wool plant comes in, we're not gonna have to worry about the horses, because they're not gonna be able to run. So here you got another problem. Here in Jefferson County, we brought racing in, the people brought racing in and gambling in the late 1940s. With that was tied the structure in the law, basically a deed, saying that we, the people, have control. Now, the other part of the gambling, we allowed. It was voted on. And I said, when this all happened, and it was the promises that we weren't about to pay any more taxes, the schools were going to be taken care of, the teachers were going to have pocketful of money, we didn't have to worry about anything else. Well, guess what? That didn't happen. So, when you get down to the racing end of it, legislation can do basically anything they want. But we still have the deed that says that we have control over the horse racing, and if the horse racing goes, so does gambling. Now that is a fact. So when everybody else doesn't know what the problems or how to handle it or whatever, I think I've been pretty versed on it. I can't tell the future, but I know the gamble that we take if we don't stand up and start grabbing hold of this government, so-called, and only you can make the change.
Mr. Barrat?
I support the equine industry. It's a great green industry for Jefferson County. The Charlestown Races and Slots was doing very well until they built a couple other racetracks in Maryland and DC. That's all I have.
Mr. Lorenzetti?
My understanding is a few years ago, I think you said 2014, that the horsemen, maybe begrudgingly, but agreed to take a cut to help workman's comp, with the understanding that in a few years that haircut would be stopped. I think our legislature needs, and the workman's comp board needs to live up to their promise to the horsemen. And if I'm elected county commissioner, I will drive all 5 county commissioners down to the legislature, whether we elect Democrats or Republicans to the legislature, and go down there and do like the teachers did, pound on the desk and get that changed.
Ms. Tabb?
I'm glad you asked that question. The haircut bill has been devastating to the horse industry, affecting the Breeders' Fund and their purses. It's been a tough slog for them, and I know they're working hard. We need to support our horse industry. It's, as a farmer, I know it's a major component of our local ag economy. The straw and hay sales, bedding and so forth. That's the only kind of ag sales that happen here. The corn and the soybeans, unless you're using it for your own animals, go down the road. They're shipped out to Baltimore, it goes down to Virginia to feed the poultry industry. So we need them. The farmers need the horse industry to survive here locally. It is a green space that we all enjoy. Horse farms are beautiful. I just love seeing horses out in paddocks. It's labor intensive, supports a lot of folks that are not going to have your college degree, but they know animals and they love working with them. And it's hard work, but it's a great job too. It's very rewarding. That money needs to be returned to the horsemen, and that's something, since Governor Justice says we have a surplus right now, we need to talk to him about that. And sports betting, very disappointed in that. I think it takes away from the gambling revenue that's available here in the county, and it will hurt the horse industry because there'd be fewer dollars to use in betting.
And there's a follow-up question, and Mr. Lorenzetti, since you brought it up, I'll let you answer this one first. The racing, breeding, equine industry employs about 14 or 15% of the jobs in this county, and the average they list here is about 3,500 jobs for the county, contributing over $160 million in annual economic impact. Do you think it's fair that they've been required to contribute roughly $11 million per year to pay that state unfunded workers' comp? And what will you do to basically fight for the industry?
Well, I think I said I'll drive down there. And if I can get more than 5 people in the car, I'll bring more than 5 people. I think the racing industry is very important. You know, we used to have an orchard industry, and that is sort of going by the wayside. We have a little bit still. The only real rural development we have is the horse industry, and I think we need to support that any way we can. I know there's fears that the track, or the casinos, I should say, are trying to change the rules, change the laws, so they don't have to have horse racing. I would push our legislatures not to let that happen. You know, if we want green space, we have to support the people that give it to us.
Mr. Onoszko, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll comment on that. Mr. Lorenzetti brought out the point that decisions like this are legislative in nature and need to be done in Charleston. I think it behooves all of us as individuals, and it behooves the county commission also through enacting resolutions supporting the horse industry and asking for a relook and change in the way the horse industry is benefited through tax policies and that kind of thing. I can't imagine Jefferson County without a racetrack, and I think that we ought to do everything we possibly can to support that and to interact with our legislature. There has been instituted around the 20th of January or thereabouts every year a Jefferson County Day in the state legislature, which enables us to lobby with state legislators and brings a focus on that. And I would support the theme of the 1919 Jefferson County Day to be the horse industry almost exclusively.
Thank you. Ms. Tabb?
Repeat the question.
Is it fair that
Oh.
they've been required to pay the $11 million a year? What will you do to support the industry?
Definitely not fair. It was promised to be paid back. It hasn't been paid back. That has to be changed. And I'll ride down with Mr. Lorenzetti. Or I'll drive Mr. Lorenzetti down, whatever it takes, or anyone else that wants to go and lobby for this to be turned around. I can't tell you how important it is to the local ag economy. Many of you know, for 15 years, I organized Jefferson County Farm Day. And I always had a horse farm on that tour of usually 4 farms in the county. And that was the one farm that got the most visits. I mean, it's just an attraction to everyone. And, you know, from little kids that have never touched a horse. And also, we just did Leadership Jefferson, the ag module. We went to O'Sullivan Farms. And those folks learned all about the horse industry and how much hands-on work there is to get that little cute colt into a big massive racehorse. So I will do anything I can to support the horsemen. If we need new legislation to make it work, if we need to go down and beat on the doors and say, return that money, pay it back with interest. That's what you promised.
Mr. Tabb?
I think this is going to be one thing that almost all of us are going to want to change. This is not the first time that the state has taken money from the horse people. I got some heads nodding up here, they know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not a horse person. I do have some that I inherited due to my wife's interest. But it did make me a better farmer, because then I had to make better quality hay to be able to make sure that these horses didn't get sick. And because of that, her interest in making me a better farmer and making a better product, I made an industry out of that within my own business. It bought new equipment and gave me an opportunity to provide services for our local people, and mainly for our pets, the horse pets. And they have a special name for my hay, and they call it horse candy. And they just absolutely love it. But for the state to come in here again and again and again and deprive our heritage of these horse farms that truly, truly love the industry. It's a lot of work. It's 24/7. And when these animals are folding, there is no time to sleep. So it's hard work, it's diligent. I will do whatever I can. I know a lot of people in Charleston. I can drive, but I can also send a lot of letters, and I do it already. So the mail system works very well for me. So again, it is a problem. We need to get it taken care of, and I think everybody will agree with that.
Mr. Barrett?
Just a few thoughts very briefly. Does anybody in here remember when they used to have the parade of horses in Charlestown? It was a lot of fun at Christmas time. I don't know why they aren't doing that anymore. It has been about, I've been looking for it. You know, I took my kids there. It was just a lot of fun. Hundreds of horses walk right down Main Street. I also support the horse industry. I think that the state should give the money back. There was just an article earlier this year that 20% of all the tourism dollars in the whole state come to Jefferson County. And a lot of that is the horse industry. A lot of that is ag industry, horse industry. I want to tie it together with what I've been talking about all this evening. David Tabb hit on the same thing. If we let Rockwell in here, you know, very few people, I don't know who all ever has had a horse. You can learn a lot from a horse, and they don't say a thing. You know, you can pick up a lot. They never say a thing, and you can learn a lot about what their needs are and animal husbandry and that kind of thing. There was recently a veterinarian that wrote a letter about how damaging Rockwell is going to be with all those volatile organic chemicals that are going to land in Jefferson County. 300 tons of particulate matter, all the VOCs, those are going to be really bad for horses. I think we need to look at what the future holds in Jefferson County. You know, Rockwell presents a real dangerous threat to the horse industry. Thank you.
Jefferson County subdivision regulations provide for riparian buffers along rivers, creeks, and streams. Since we're talking about green space, figured we'd go here. Do you support increasing forested areas in our county, and specifically the land adjacent to all streams, perhaps by requiring developers to identify sensitive areas, make reforestation an integral part of the site planning process? Mr. Tabb.
Why did you ask? Being on the conservation district, being an associate, there's already plans in place that will help us do stream remediation, and they've already spent millions and millions of dollars in fencing, and they can also put up trees. The money is already there. All you have to do is ask. It's very simple. But yet, the conservation district was left out on Rockwell. Now, here they've spent millions and millions of dollars to keep down on pollution, and we're 50% above what was required in 2025 for the Chesapeake Bay. How many knew that? How many knew that we were above that? Very few. But I attend those meetings. I am very fortunate, and we have very good people in these programs. And the money is there, waiting for us to be done. Why hasn't it been used? Because you weren't told. But why do we have Rockwell coming in here and it's going to destroy all this beautiful landscape? I won't be able to make my hay. The horses won't be able to breathe. The remediation is only a part of it. Why fix the streams if we're going to destroy it with 93 tons of coal burnt every hour?
Mr. Lorenzetti.
I would support that effort. We have rules on our rivers and some of our streams as far as floodplains, so there is space that developers could use without losing buildable property, because you don't want to take people's land if it's usable. And I'm sure Dan and Nancy, if we could get together with them and get the developers together, we could probably work out a plan, and I would be willing to work with you, Dan and Nancy. Thank you.
Mr. Barrat.
Well, I'm going to tie it into the other thing we were talking about, home rule. We can agree on all we want on the county property, and you have all the annexed property of the cities that wouldn't have to listen to anything that the county says. So it's kind of an academic pursuit. I think who doesn't like repairing buffers and forested areas around and to protect the waterways? I think that's a very good thought. Technically, the conservation also pays for septic tank repair and septic tank pump out. Not many people know about it, but that money's available, and they also pay for farmers to help lime fields, and it's money that's available. It's not well known about. I do think that the developers should identify the sensitive areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Onoszko.
Been here for an hour and a half that this started, and a constant theme that has been coming up is that Rockwell is going to destroy this, Rockwell is going to destroy that. Rockwell has got so much toxic stuff coming out that the animals are going to quit breeding, the plants are going to die, the birds will quit flying, and everybody's going to have to move someplace else because this will become a wasteland. And I'm here to tell you, and there was an article in the Spirit, I believe 3 weeks ago, where Austin Caperton, the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection, stated absolutely unequivocally that rockwool presents no health hazard to people, animals, or agriculture. Now, you all can believe whatever you want to believe, but that is the fact. That's that.
Ms. Tabb. Let's be respectful to our participants.
You spoke specifically about reforestation along stream banks and so forth. A lot of farmers are doing that now. I do think it would be a great, we do some of that, I believe, in our subdivision regs. We probably need to do more. There is, you know, the whole stormwater concept and not letting any water run off of your property to negatively impact your neighbors, which we've seen that this year. Obviously, it's been a challenging year, but we do need either reforestation or seeding, so we have that biofilter as there is runoff before it gets into these streams. It sure makes a difference. We do have safeguards that, you know, in the zoning ordinance that you can't build on the floodplain and those other things, but there's always more we can do. I know a lot of farmers have actually, you know, fenced off their streams and put in waterers so that the animals are not standing in the stream or in a pond. You don't want that. I mean, they're pooping in there and they're peeing in there. You gotta get them out, even that's a handy way to water them, and put in your own waters, and so they have a clean water source. So, I think the county could lead by example and hopefully get the cities involved too in that. I'm sure they do some of that in their own ordinances, but I think it would be great if we could have a more comprehensive effort. And I know they're trying to do that with the parks along the stream lines, stream banks, and so forth too.
Okay, did I hit everyone? Okay. I have a couple of questions that are for specific individuals. Mr. Lorenzetti, can you explain having employed an assistant prosecutor who was convicted of a drug offense in your office during the time when you were elected prosecutor?
All right, I think I put something on my Facebook page. I hope you all look at my Facebook page. The assistant prosecutor involved had a back problem. He took pain medication. He got addicted to pain medication. He also had a pool problem, and I'm talking about not a swimming pool. Played pool every night, got in some financial difficulties. Leave my office, noticed this problem, spoke to the county administrator, we forced him to take counseling. However, he didn't take it serious, and he sold some of his medication. And as usually happens, he sold it to somebody who works for the police. He spent, I think, 3 to 4 months in prison and went on probation, lost his license. Contrary to what the blurb on the roto calls was, it wasn't a drug ring. It was a young man who had a problem, as unfortunately a lot of young people have with their pain medication.
Mr. Onoszko, why did the commissioners vote to approve the request to issue a waiver for the property by Morgan Grove Park when the planners and the county engineer recommended against it?
Is there a date attached to,
There isn't.
to that question?
There isn't. I can't offer anything else.
I don't recall at this
Okay.
point in time.
Ms. Tabb, is that one that you can come to the forefront?
I'm not sure, I think it's, was adjacent to Morgan Grove Park? I mean, what did they?
It just says the property
Oh, okay.
by Morgan Grove Park.
And what was the question? Why did we do?
Why did you approve the waiver? Mr. Onoszko, would you like to take a second stab at it?
Yeah.
Since I started with him, Ms. Tabb, I hope you don't mind.
This, now I remember exactly where it was located in the map and everything that came in front of it. The waiver was granted because the property, and this is a property rights issue, was not located within Morgan Grove. It was out on the road, and the issue dealt with changing the zoning of that particular parcel of property in order to make it more sellable on behalf of the property owner. The property owner, if memory serves me correctly, is a jeweler, has a business in Shepherdstown. There were objections from the community that is contiguous to the parcel. However, when the Planning Commission considered this and then recommended it on to the County Commission, there was no logical, or put it this way, legal reason to deny the property owner the change in zoning that he sought. It was consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it's kind of like going to the DMV. If you have all of your documentation in order and you want to register a vehicle, the DMV clerk can't say, I don't like Italian sports cars, so I'm not going to register your vehicle. The applicant had everything that he needed. It was necessary. Those from the adjacent community could not show where he could not get the change in zoning. As a result thereof, the county commission went ahead and granted his request.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on it, Ms. Tabb?
I think we're talking about two different properties and I can't remember the details, so.
Okay. Mr. Barrett, what will you do to improve transparency on the commission and all county government?
I would like to point people to the different boards that represent the Jefferson County population across the board, not just a lot of the boards, it seems to me, are heavy with the developers. I'd like to have all the open meetings, keep the executive sessions to a minimum, try to announce, put the agenda up. I think they're currently putting the agenda up on the internet, put it on the Jefferson County Commission website, let everybody know where the meeting's going to be and what time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we do our last question?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. What is the most vulnerable environmental and social issue in Jefferson County? And what are your thoughts on how we can improve it? And this will be our final question. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Go for it.
I've been talking about it all night. It's rock wool. They're gonna change the whole view shed. They're gonna change the whole environment. They're gonna make it so all these chemicals are gonna rain down on the county. Mr. Onoszko is certainly welcome to all of my share. He doesn't think it's gonna be a problem. It's a terrible problem. Look at the letters that people that live around other rock wool plants write in Europe and in Mississippi. I don't want a wool fall. I don't want the insulation coming down at my house. I don't want particulate matter less than 2.5 microns that can't be filtered. I don't want to breathe that. We've got to stop it somehow. It's going to destroy the county. Look at 20% of the whole state's tourist dollars come through Jefferson County. They're not going to come up here to see a 230-foot smokestack. You know, they want to come up here and take a nice walk through Harper's Ferry with Park Service. They want to walk on the C&O Canal. They want to go to Summit Point Speedway. They want to go to walk around the Shepherd University campus, walk around American Public Online University. Downtown Charlestown is very nice. You know, it's a beautiful county. We can't let it be destroyed with rock wool. That is the #1 environmental, social, and important thing. Now, back on the homeless people, I just found $10 million. Let's get the tax money that they gave away to rock wool and let's put the homeless people. If you want to solve the homeless problem, I know where $10 million is hiding. Thank you.
Ms. Tabb.
Obviously, the biggest issue, primary issue, is rock wool right now. And I am the only commissioner that has stated opposition. As early as August 3rd, I said, after listening to concerned citizens, I can no longer support rock wool. Primarily for me, what I knew then was the air quality issue. And as I say, that will impact my family, my grandchildren, as I know it will impact many of you. I haven't found any legal remedy to stop it. I wish I could. I'm still looking. But I have not found a legal remedy that will stop rock wool. Rock wool has committed to fund an independent air monitoring station and a health risk assessment for the Board of Education. Perhaps with the results of that health risk assessment, that'll give us a tool to challenge what has been approved through the DEP. An independent air monitoring station is absolutely necessary if anything happens that Rockville starts up. It has to be built before it becomes operational, and we've got to protect our children. That, to me, is primary. I'm still waiting for more answers from West Virginia DEP, and they're not real too good on responding on how self-monitoring happens. I don't trust the process. Rockville will be self-reporting. That's a problem for me. I can't find out how often they're going to test the monitors and how it's actually physically going to be done and how the information will be transmitted. So Rockville has no plans to build a rail spur. When they first were looking at property, I knew they wanted to be located by a railroad to build a rail spur. I would sure rather see all those heavy trucks. If I have to make a choice, I'd rather see those heavy trucks off the road and most of the raw materials coming in on a rail spur. I think that's safer for all of us, and it would not degrade our roads, which we know we have a problem keeping up. I've also found out that the Rockville water usage.
Thank you, Ms. Tabb.
I'm sorry. I'm on a roll.
Mr. Onoszko, environmental or social issue?
Once again, there are all sorts of misstatements, misinformation, and whatever brought about by purportedly problems out the beyond count in with all rock wool or rock silt plants located throughout the world. That's simply not the case. Milton, Ontario, where rock wool has been for about 30 years, similar kind of plant to the one that they're building here, is one of the fastest growing suburbs of Toronto, Ontario. It's a suburb of Toronto, Ontario, in all the province of Ontario. Magazines that look into this kind of stuff, the top 10 best communities in which to move in Ontario, Milton is number 4. It's just simply not happening. Now, there are people who have a different take on it, but they are a minority, and what they're talking about is not supported by facts. Rock wool exists in 40 some odd different, please put that sign down, you're not supposed to have it up, thank you. Rock wool has operations in 43 different locations throughout Europe, well 38 in Europe, 43 throughout the entire world. Rock wool is one of the few companies, when they put up a problem, they admit to it immediately and explain how they're going to remediate it. Under normal circumstances, rock wool would be the kind of business that we would want to have in Jefferson County. They are extraordinarily environmentally conscious.
Mr. Tabb?
Economically and also environmentally. Number 1 is rock wool. It's really sad to hear the controversy and have very few solutions. The rock wool facility is supposed to be so great, but yet I got paper after paper of violations that they've already done here. They haven't even built it yet, and they're in violation. So, is there a solution? I think there is. One is a resolution to put before the people and make it so that no individual, business, or anything else can produce a product that pollutes anything else other than their own property. So, if it can't leave, guess what? They can't build it. If they can't control it, they can't build it. It's very easy. I'm not allowed to produce any pollution to go on to anybody else. I have a business. I can't do that. There's everybody around here that's been in housing development and everything else has had a water retention structure. They're not allowed to do that. We have all this process in place, and we're not allowed to do it. How can you let a company come in here and bully us around and get all this 93 tons an hour of coal and steel slag and everything else and pollute our beautiful county and harm our children?
Mr. Lorenzetti?
Randy, I'm not gonna say horses, but I'm gonna say children. And part of the problem is the Rockwell situation. People are very concerned about their children and the fallout from there. Now, it may only be a problem when there's an aversion, but aversions do happen. Why do they have to have 220-foot stacks? That's because they're trying to get the pollution away. And I've told people, my concern is, yes, they're trying to get it away. They're trying to get it over Blue Ridge Mountain, right to Leesburg, and that's where my son and grandson live. So I am concerned whether it's here or there. I was down in Washington, D.C. recently. I went to by my old grade school, which is on North Capitol Street in D.C. And I noticed the neighborhood is pretty much the same. And it gave me hope for the Rockwell situation, because I remember when I went away to college, there was plans in DC to put an interstate right through that neighborhood. And a woman and a community group got together and said, hell no. And they were told the Department of Highway was gonna put that through, nothing they could do about it. The neighborhood, 40 years later, is still there, and the highway is not there. So keep the faith.
I'd like to take a second and thank the audience for your questions. They were fantastic questions, and I'd like to thank you for coming out this evening and giving our candidates the respect that is due them as candidates. And I'd like for you to join me in thanking them for coming and answering the questions that you've prepared. Okay, we'll permit 1 minute for each of you to sum up your candidacy or anything that you'd like us to know, and then we'll close for the evening. Mr. Lorenzetti?
As I said, I'm Ralph Lorenzetti. I've lived here 35 years. I'd appreciate your vote. I'm going to do my best to fight Rockwell. I know Mr. Tabb is doing the same thing, and Mr. Barratt's doing the same thing, and Ms. Tabb is doing it. So please talk to us. You know, we're doing things, but if you have an idea, please express it to us, because you may have an idea that we haven't thought of. So please do that, and appreciate your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Mr. Tabb?
I repeat the same thing. You have a choice. I will help. I've already been doing it for over a year. I saw this coming. Nobody else joined in. But they're now. They are now. They understand. This is really bad. But if you want to believe that we can't stop it, well, I have brochures on air monitoring systems because I'm going to get into the business. So, this is really serious. I don't know what else to tell you, but I will do everything possible. Put me in there and there will never be a dull moment. I guarantee it. Absolutely. I will stand up, bring your thoughts, bring your kids, and I will help them. This is what we need to do. Thank you.
Mr. Onoszko?
Well, I agree with Mr. Tabb in saying that when he said that you have a choice. Yes, you have a choice. You have a choice to elect somebody who believes in the rule of law, who believes that there are things that the county can do and the county can't do, as indicated by state code. And we either are a nation, a state, or a county of laws, or we make up things as we go along, whatever the wind, whatever the current feeling happens to be. And I'm the candidate that is supporting law, order, and, if you will, resisting the mob and emotion that surrounds us right now.
Ms. Tabb?
Thank you all for being here tonight and being informed voters. As a lifelong Republican, I consider myself a moderate and a voice of rational, thoughtful discussion and decision-making. These past 2 years have truly been tumultuous, from a campaign ethics violation filed against me by my own party for informing voters of their rights and options, the move to eliminate the ambulance fee, which is so critical to everyone's health and safety, and the relocation of the Daughters of the Confederacy plaque. If you want to contact me, it's best to private message me or email me. I am sorting through literally hundreds of Facebook posts and emails a day. I have 3 email accounts. I check them all because some people cross over and I miss some comments. So please contact me, and if you have ideas, anything that we can look into on the Rockwell situation, please let me know. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the people, not at the cow.
Mr. Barrat?
Thank you very much, Ms. Crockett. Like I said yesterday, I think everybody understands my position on Rockwell. Yesterday, Ralph Lorenzetti and I wrote a letter. It contains 11 reasons why the permit should be pulled on Rockwell. It should stop now. We don't need to get into monitoring it. We need to stop it now before we ever have to monitor it. I can imagine all the different problems that's going to create. I do have the letter from Mr. Onoszko. If he would like to read the 11 reasons that Mr. Lorenzetti and I came up with, the letter is also on my Facebook page, and it's on the internet, and we mail it out to the different recipients. The Rockwell, the 150 jobs threaten the 3,400 jobs that the horse industry and the agriculture industry represent. It's a bad deal all around. This is a time when the state teachers had to strike just to get a living wage and to try to get some health insurance, and at the same time, we're giving Rockwell $10 million for free.
Mr. Barrat, thank you.
Thank you. I think everybody.
I want to remind everyone that Ralph Lorenzetti, David Tabb, and Peter Onoszko are the candidates from the Harpers Ferry District. And then Jane Tabb and Rob Barrat are the candidates from the Middleway District. And if you would join me too in thanking the League of Women for hosting us this evening.
And as you all can see, I'm standing up. Let's give Ms. Crockett a hand. Thank you all candidates for coming here and being willing to share your feelings. Everybody, one moment please. Hey, everybody, we will be having a broadcast of this event on WDMV TV, the 10 o'clock news, and there has been a full taping of this proceedings that will be available for you to review on the Jefferson County League of Women Voters Jefferson County webpage. Thank you for coming. Thank you.